All right, we're live. Welcome everybody to another DoneJS contributors meeting. We just lost Sheriff. Thanks everybody for being here. I missed you all last week when I couldn't make it because I was traveling to LA to do a DoneJS training. It went really well. The biggest issue, well, I would say the number one issue I think that we could help with DoneJS, although it would take some work, would be removing all non, what is it called, the kind of pure, like anything that you have to compile. If we could remove needing to install Visual Studio and that kind of stuff to make it work on Windows, that would be really nice, because that is just every person with the Windows machine just struggles with that. And it's like, that's just the hard part of a framework like DoneJS is you want the, hey Matt, or hey David, you want all this cool functionality. Well, yeah, but you could just take off, like, I mean, that's why we still definitely need to keep promoting CanJS and make CanJS better, which is what I'll talk about today. But compared to like another framework, you just download a script, start playing around in your browser, versus you have to install C++ compiler and .NET and things like that. It's a big burden for learning. Anyways, now that David's here, I'll give my status. So the previous week I've been working with David on 3.0, CanJS 3.0. It's going pretty well. Yeah, last night I spent a little too much time trying to make our new observable type work with Lodash, so that you could like easily use like a sign and copy properties from this kind of defined map to another. I can get it to work with the for in loop, but the problem is Lodash, the keys are the issue, that the properties aren't actually on the instance itself, they're in its prototype. I wish I was about to submit an issue actually to Lodash. I doubt they'll accept it, which is to say, if an object has use the object's own has-own property, not the has-own property on the object prototype object. Although we could be very evil and overwrite that, but we couldn't before Lodash was already captured its own. So I spent way too much time working on that, and then I just said, screw it, I'm not gonna do it. And I just made there's going to be a toObject method and a serialize method that kind of give you back your plain objects, at least probably for launch, unless Lodash is like, oh, we'll totally use your own has-own properties, so we can support things that are a little bit more rich than plain JavaScript objects. So I'm hopefully at the end of today we'll actually have that to-do MVC fully working. There was a lot more in I was working at CanConnect. David will talk about what he was working on, but that should be ready to go and for people to look at this weekend, end of today. So that's it for me. And I guess I would like to talk about it because I didn't hear what you guys said, but we'll talk about it after everybody gives their status. I'm done. Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Cool.
So yeah, we were working on CanJS 3.0. I think we are mostly done. I'm just wrapping up some tests for Can component. We modularized a couple more things, so we have a lot of CanJS packages. Also, last night I got an email back about can route, so we have the can route package too. It was actually pretty nice, but for some reason he couldn't email me back on my Bitovi address, which was kind of weird. So I'm going to publish can route today and the final version of can component, and I think that's everything we need for today.
Oh, you'll have to change can route so it can take a define map.
Oh yeah, like the map thing. Or are we gonna just make can route to be that define map to?
No, it should just use the default, I think.
Because it extends can map, right? And then we'll just make it
Uses can
mappable
map,
to.
but we have to make it so that it's the same thing I'm having to do for can connect, which kind of stinks. It's basically like, in some ways, I should almost make like a util helpers to this, just like read and write. We kind of have that with the observable reader has a write function too, but basically I'm just checking if after is in the object, then I'm using the at, and it's a method, then I read it the property through that. Otherwise, I just read the dot property, and I do similar thing for setting the property. And can route will probably have to do some similar like.
Yeah.
If it looks like I've got, if the data object is the only other problem that I foresee, and we're getting into the weeds more than I want, is, but I don't care, the attr method on can, we do create an attr method on can route that goes into whatever the data object is, the actual map that's provided. We really need to expose that now as something else, just so like, because, or we need to set up like a similar parallel set of getter setters or something to be funneled into. So we'll need to talk about that later.
Yeah, okay, we can talk about that later. I'm wrapping up the component tests,
Cool.
and I think that's it. And then we can probably start on 2D MVC.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've already written it. Just
Yeah, just gonna make sure that it
works.
all works right. Yep, that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Who wants to go next?
Okay, hi everyone. I can go next. Yeah. So I was actually working on this CAN util issue, which is issue number 3, which is deep extent changes. So I have submitted a pull request for this issue. Justin, I saw that you have assigned the pull request to yourself. Did you get a chance to review these changes?
Yeah, I did. They look good. The only reason why I didn't pull it was because I have to go then. There's a few places in other repositories that are using deep extend, and I have to change all of them so I don't break like everything. And I was planning on waiting to do that after To-Do-MVC was out. If you want to go trace those down and find them and do it, then that's great, and we can move all of them in at the same time. But that's the only reason why I didn't merge it. I was just I want to get To-Do-MVC working and then go back and kind of clean things up like this.
Yeah, but in the exported name, right? I've not changed its exported name. So do we still need to change the references everywhere? If you
renamed it, right, to deep assign. So yeah, we need to change it everywhere we're importing it. And you remove the need for true, right?
yes.
Yeah. So everywhere that's being imported, I need to change it from import can-util/js/deepextend to deepassign, and then where it was passing true, I need to change it so it's not passing true anymore.
Okay.
So we don't break. And in reality, I think there's only there's can control that uses deepextend, and there's probably only one other place that's even using it. It's not super. I forgot where it is being used. Maybe map or route management. I don't know. Well, David's gone, but I definitely know can control uses it to deepextend its default object. And if you wanted, you could just look through those projects and see where it's used, and then do that change and submit those as pull requests, and then we can get it right away. Otherwise, it'll probably wait till next week, until after To-Do-MVC is done.
Okay, sure. So what I'll do is I'll go through these modules, I'll search for the references, and I'll update those references.
Okay, that would be great. Awesome. Thank you.
And the the second thing that I was working on was for the GAN-JS issue. It was issue number 2358, which is rendering stash templates as string not working. So,
Hold on. 2358?
yeah, that's 2358.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't get a chance to work on this issue, so I'll probably continue working on this.
Yeah,
That's all.
Yeah, the problem is just Stash is not a... Stash is just not a... Like I said, yeah, you can do that trick that he gave, but it's just Stash is not like naturally inclined to be rendered into a string. But that's fine. If this works, like I said, that's totally cool to add.
Yeah. So that's what I'll look into next.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who wants to go next? Julian?
Yeah, I can. Sure. Nothing really important on me. So I've created last week an example app of Steel and React. So if someone would like to know how Steel works with DoneJS, I have a little test app that's import React and uses some React features. Yeah, I also tried that with our DoneJS or Done React wrapper. So I made some pull requests on that and some on Steel JSX. And then I tried something with Steel and DoneJS server-side rendering, also with React. So React is now working on is now working because Matthew had something to do with the SSR middleware. He had a pull request, and now we can render React server-side.
How does the reattachment work, though? That was the problem.
What did you say?
The reattachment in the browser has been a sore spot for our DoneJS, Done React team. So I'm wondering how you guys fixed that. They had to do some kind of hacky stuff to make promises synchronous to make it actually work, because React freaks out if the DOM, when it's doing mounting, doesn't match like the initial, like the state provided to it. So I'm wondering if you guys fix that, or if you guys haven't gotten to the attachment part of server-side rendering yet, and that's why. I don't know. That's what I'm wondering.
Sorry, I didn't really understand you. Your internet connection or mine is very bad. I used the DoneJS React repo, and it's working. So I have no problems with that, and the server-side rendering with React also works with an Express app and the DoneJS SSR middleware. It's also working. So I have no problems until yet. The only thing I reported is that we have this problem that our DoneJS React wrapper is wrapped into an ES6 class, and we all have in our templates, in our React templates, we also have to call .bind and then in parentheses this. So because we are losing this auto binding with the ES6 class. So I think James or something else posted that maybe we can refactoring our done React repo that's now working, or that's working with auto binding. So we have to remove the ES6 class and go down to I think constructor functions to make that work. But this is only a test. So if someone look at this hangout later in YouTube and see, oh, okay, DoneJS provides to work with React, he can look at the repo and he can find some stuff like server-side rendering. I think this is really cool stuff, because I didn't found anything that's worked really great with React and server-side rendering. So it's very cool. So that's for me.
Awesome. Thanks. Kevin?
Sure, I can go next. Let me share my screen. So I've been working on DoneJS Mocha, so I can show that. So this is, can you guys see? This is just a freshly generated DoneJS app. And in the test, you can see it's using QUnit, and then like in the functional test, we're using QUnit. If I run DoneJS test, it runs with QUnit. So if I say DoneJS add Mocha, then it will install, hopefully. Hopefully it won't take too long.
Does it overwrite the...
Sorry, does it overwrite what?
the existing tests?
So right now it's not overwriting existing tests. The only things that it's overwriting are those two files that I just showed you, the test HTML and then this functional JS test. That's kind of the next thing I want to figure out is, do we want to overwrite all of the...
Why does it overwrite the test HTML?
Because, here, I'll show you in a second. For Mocha, we have to add this data Mocha equals BDD.
Ah. Okay. Wait, does that use, is the app like loading a steel Mocha?
Yes.
So why doesn't steel Mocha just add that?
I don't know.
Okay, that's what steel. So like, QUnit has a QUnit dash fixture. Like, it wants a div in the page. It's called that has an ID QUnit dash fixture.
Right.
Steel QUnit just adds that to the page if it doesn't exist.
Okay.
The idea is like we can make our steel whatever's kind of bootstrappy. I'm okay with that if you want to make it so it does that. So that people don't have to like even know if they want to manually create a test page, they don't have to add that data Mocha thing. If they don't.
And the other thing I did is I removed that QUnit fixture from this because that was in
that
the
was
generator.
It shouldn't have to be. Okay, well then.
It's in our app generator.
Really? I don't think it needs to be. I think you just need a script tag, unless maybe I'm wrong. I think at some point it definitely didn't need to be there.
Okay. Anyway, so it overwrites those, and now I can run DoneJS test again, and it runs Mocha this time, and everything is working. And then the other thing that it does is it writes out this .hidden DoneJS folder with the templates for components, modules, and supermodels, so that if we create a new component, it will use this test file as the template, so that it'll use Steel Mocha.
So this isn't doing it the like AST way.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So yeah, the way that we had that David had first started working on it is moving these templates into this .donejs folder.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next thing we'll need to talk about is what we want to do next, because this does make it complicated if we want to add Mocha and then add CommonJS or whatever, change the module syntax. But I still think that might be simpler than trying to write hooks for all of these, for all the generators. But I don't know.
Yeah. Did you ever find out if the generators give you a list of the files that it's?
I don't think so. No, I think all you can do is you can like hook generators together, but that really just makes it like compose them. So it just calls one and then the other, I think. So I think we still have the same problem, but I haven't done a ton of research on it.
What you really want is something that passes to the next generator. Here's the list of things I just worked on. Here's the files that I just written out. And then it would be fairly, I mean, it might seem like having done transpiling, like having recently never done transpiling, and then using tools like Esprima to do transpiling, like in the Steel Transpile, it's actually a relatively painless thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to do, but of course we need something that's written in JavaScript, not in EJS.
Yeah, unless, I mean, the other thing I was thinking of that might be crazy is just create, so write out that template, find all the EJS tags in the template, and write it to a file, replacing those tags with like weird IDs, then translate that, and then replace the tags, or replace those IDs back with the original EJS tags, and write that as the template again. So I mean, that could be hairy if the EJS templates are complicated, but if we're just replacing tag names like module and name with values, it doesn't sound super complicated to do that.
Maybe. Yeah. Cool. Well, it's good. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are happy that they can use Jasmine and Mocha now. So that's really cool.
Yeah, so there's no DoneJS Jasmine yet, but it should be almost identical to this code, except that the templates will be slightly different. So we can get that working.
What is the asset for Mocha asset dependency? Can we change that? Jai or something else?
Oh, yeah, I think it's just using assert. Let me, like the Node.js one. But yeah, we could use chai. I thought about doing that instead. That's probably what most people who use Mocha want, I would guess. Yeah, it's just using the regular assert library.
If you're installing Mocha or add DoneJS Mocha, you can, if there's a prompt and say what do you want to use, chai, assert, node, or something else. Is that possible?
Yeah, that would be possible.
This would be very cool.
The other thing we could make those all separate plugins if we wanted to, but yeah, it would be possible to prompt for that too, and then just update what gets installed and update the templates.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. That's all I have.
Awesome. Thanks. Sheriff, are you able to talk? I think he's trying.
No, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, cool. So, topics for discussion. I would like to hear, like, I think you guys did go through, yeah, Sheriff, we can't hear you. Sorry about that. I would like to talk about, like, hear what you guys thought about the new 3.0 example that's UMBC. I know you might have already talked about it last week, but I wasn't here, so I can get a summary or.
So I think.
Yeah.
No, you can actually go ahead. Mine was just details.
Okay, so Justin, you talk about can-defined and the stuff you're working on can-defined. You have also in our forum you have a thread called "You Observe API Discussion." Is that discussion closed, or are we in discussion right now, or you know something?
Which
that? Yeah, it's. Well, let me share my screen. This one. So you have asked somehow how we named our CanJS Do you know
Oh,
that?
yeah, it's up for discussion. Sure. I mean, if you got a better idea, I'd absolutely change it.
So where are we now on this? You have also you have also write this or written this API, or how is it? How
Yeah,
is it?
it's built now. So what it is right now is mostly this is working at this point. Um, the it's so it, I might change it right now. I've got there's a can define. I might make, but within that project there's a define map and a define list. Can define is the low level primitive that you might have seen before. It basically allows you to write getter setters on a prototype that are observable. Define map and define list are observables based around that functionality that are relatively similar to the old can map and can list. You extend them; they're can construct based. The reason why I like can define and I want to make it so that works, so that we can have people can make observables out of normal like ES6 or ES5 classes. But ES5 classes, like you'd always have to, I think I mentioned it, you'd always have to like tack on the observable properties kind of after the class definition, which kind of stinks. So as a kind of hybrid, like to hopefully those kind of problems and eventually, or proxies land, and with proxies land, then everything changes anyways. So my idea is that define map and define list will be a familiar yet nicer version of the old can map and can list. So they look like this. You define your map. You give it your properties. You can also give it types too. Like the shorthand now, it looks like it kind of adopted what Matthew said, which is you have a method. It can just be a function. Or you can do, if you provide it something that knows is a constructor function, let me put this. If there's something that you know is a constructor function, it will, let's say to-dos had a author, and you had a person, you can assign it like this. But then there's the more formal define style, which would be an object. So if you don't care what the type is, you can say that two different ways. What you can really say this way is like I don't care. Like we'll take whatever value is here, but we're not going to convert it to an observable. But if you do something like this, this is essentially the default type, which means if something else gets set to something that is a array or a object, it's going to be converted to a define map or define list. Right? I haven't created a type, but that might be like defined. That's the equivalent. These two things would be equivalent. And then you can also do your normal get, set, serialize, type, value. So it's the normal. It's it's very similar to the define object. It's just there's a little bit nicer shorthands, and you can write it right on the prototype, which is nice because, well, you have to define every property now, because I'm sealing these objects in. The objects get sealed in development. That doesn't happen in production because it's faster if they're not sealed. But this, which is kind of nice, it throws a warning as long as you're in strict mode, which I'm not. I think we'll have to make sure our generators are doing. And all of our code is going to be in strict mode. If you're in strict mode and would do something like new to do and did something like foo, which isn't defined, it's going to throw a warning. which is really nice because now you have to define all your properties. Lists are the same kind of thing, except you use star for the individual. If you want to make it sure that every item in the list is a star or is a type to do, you do it like this. Actually, I probably don't even need to do that. I think this works actually, or will work. So you can just say, hey, I want everything to be type to do, and then you can have properties, derived properties, expando properties on your to do. So
I think the star syntax was the only thing that was controversial last week. Like there was other ideas of passing the type of the list. Yeah, something like that, or passing the type as the first parameter or something.
I don't think that, well, I don't know about the first parameter because, well, one thing I should mention, you can do this now, which is nice. Actually, this is what I would prefer to see people doing. What this does now is I changed can construct so it no longer adds these things to the global. It does, however, make it so that the constructor function's name, when you're debugging, it's going to show up as to do in the console, right? So it's actually really nice to do, like, this kind of stuff now. It's optional, but you'll get much nicer debugging, and we probably should show something like that like with the generators too, because it just makes debugging so much nicer if you say, oh, well, I see this object, I know it's a to-do list, or I know it's a to-do type, because Chrome labels it nicely. So those act as labels. So I'd avoid changing here, but yeah, I'm open to different syntaxes. I thought about this too, or dot, or something like that. I don't.
So Justin, sorry, what happens if you add in a to-do the defined map an attribute that is not defined in the defined map? So for example, you add to-do last name and first name, and this is not defined in a defined map. Is this value or this property observable or not?
Well, so you're saying if I added that's what I'm saying. Like if I kind of showed that with the foo property. So if I have to do and I did like var, t equals new to do, and I did, anything, something like if I did full name here, where it's not defined up above, this is going to throw an error. It's saying full name isn't defined. Similarly, if I did t dot full name, this is also going to throw an error.
So, but the problem I see, maybe I'm wrong, is if we used to do in a super map and we got from the server more attributes that we defined in the defined map, we got errors.
Yeah, you'll get errors. So you have to go and define them all.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there no possibility to say, okay, if they're not defined, ignore them or make them observable or make them as a normal string or something like that? Because some users got some information back from the server that they can't define all the properties, so because they're not interested in the properties, but they are also there.
Yeah, so we can make it so it's not sealed. So we have a few possibilities we could do. So one is make it so that the object isn't sealed, so that those properties would be added, but they wouldn't be observable. The other option is we could open up an API to allow people to dynamically, when you can actually create a defined map, and as long as you create it with all of its observables up front, those will become observable. And we can make it so that as long as you define, we can make it so if full name is at least a part of the construction of it, we can make it so that those become observable. We could also do, pull in a .attr function So as long as you're going through that, but then you might as well just be using the other can map.
So I like the first one because if you're not interested in all the API, all the stuff that API get back from the server, you are not using the observable pattern. So maybe we can leave that. So it's my personal, yeah.
Well, I don't think it should be the default because I think the amount of times people are going to, like, it's even in my limited use of it, the errors are so nice because they are like, oh, I called completed complete. And it's like, boom, you know that it's there, and you know that you messed up your property name, which is super useful. So I'm totally fine, though, I think, of making like a static kind of more configuration, which would be like seal false, that you can say, and then this will not seal that type. And then if you had your models that could presumably get types that they didn't care about, then this would then it would be totally fine. It would not seal the instances of this type. Would that work?
That is cool. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I can add that pretty easily. Yeah, I do think eventually we'll want a way to, like, say, dynamic properties can get, in the long run, like if proxies are here, when proxies land, then all of this goes away. We can have both good, decent performance and flexibility. But for now, I actually, well, I haven't worked on it with a big app, but the sealing is actually really nice. It does feel a lot like type safety, and the same benefits you get from that is that you very quickly realize if you've named something wrong. Yes, it's a runtime thing, but it's a very quick runtime error that's very loud and obvious. So I appreciate that. So sure, I can add this in. So were there any other thoughts, though? Like, was there another option that people, besides star, which is what I have it as now, we could do kind of index or something? I don't know. Someone felt strongly enough.
So, David, what was our thoughts last week? What does Adam or the other guys say? Do you remember that?
About what?
Yeah, the attribute that we defined for a defined attribute.
Alternatives for the star.
Yeah.
I don't remember who had a
I think it was Marshall. Yeah, I think we were thinking of like either, well, the brackets, but that doesn't really, that almost looks like ES6 dynamic properties.
Yeah, that is true. It does kind of look like that. I didn't think it was that. But, I mean, we could just call it, like, there is an item method. So to do list, like instances, you still have to access. If I go like this, if you want the reading of an individual property to be observable, you go through this item. You go through this item method. So we could call it just item or items. I don't know. Now this, in general, I am trying to make it hard so that these can be used by Lodash. So these are observable if you're looping through the whole thing. Like if you do a normal for loop now, finally, if you just were like, if someone were to naturally write, to do this, this is going to be observable as long as, like, pretty much in any situation. Because of the length. right? So it's going to bind a link. So even though it's not like observing on specific individual, there's no swapping anymore. So that's, I mean, maybe that's the big reason why it works now. So previously, like you would need to not only do dot like atter length and then dot. You would need a loop like this to make sure it was fully observable for like all situations. You don't have to do that anymore because basically I made it so that any mutation of to-dos always changes the length. So if you do something like to-dos, right, you can't really, you're not really supposed to, you shouldn't do this ever. Like this won't work because this is really not allowed. But the normal mutation, and that's I think the big difference is previously you could do something like, but you can't do, there's no atter anymore, you can't do this. If you really want to change the first item, well then you need to do something like you would need to do something like that, which effectively changes the length. So yeah, we got to keep people from doing stuff like this now. That's kind of a bummer. We still don't have perfect mimicking of what an array can do. But as long as people are going through these normal methods as the substitute, the length changes, and then all of this is observable in the right way. So anyways, the rest of this, hopefully you guys got to look through it a decent amount. Let me know if I'm being redundant. But essentially, you're defining your type of data, a list of it, then you hook it up to a supermap, which I might actually make this example not using supermap, but just making it use like a lightweight version. Basically, the can map can the connect map connect constructor and connect data URL behaviors, and just see how light I can get can to do MVC, like the file size of CanJS, those things. And then it's the same everywhere else, right? You just, your view model. Oh, wait, this is wrong. Oh, this is creating the, you create your view model, hook it up. Now it's a view model method, and this is supposed to be a view method for your template. I don't know if David made that change yet, but change it to view and view model so we can more accurately say like we're MVVM and align with those names better. Yeah, I don't know. The rest of it's pretty straightforward, I think. The nice things really are no atters here, like your displayed to-dos. All right, I'm gonna create a getter for it, and I can read the filter property, read the to-dos property, call these to-dos remaining completed expando properties. It's just, I don't know, I like it without .atter. I think it's way nicer. I don't know, any thoughts?
So adding a attribute is not possible to define. It's also this problem with got an error.
Yes, adding a prop. Now we can make it possible through some kind of API.
So .atter, for example.
Yeah, we could make it .atter, so like if the property wasn't already defined, it would like set up the prototype and things like that, or set up the property. I mean, if you look at how it's actually built internally, it kind of does that. So like, it checks if there's defines. If there's defines, it's going to use a different type of setup method. But the default setup method is for when you're actually just like dynamically creating a map, define map. What I mean is like if someone writes literally define map and all of their properties up front, I want that to still be observable. So this is kind of like dynamically creating observables, all we really need to do is for each property run this, which sets up the getter setters. So I could easily create a method, or I could easily create attr that would just like check, oh, is this already part of the defines? And if it isn't, set this up, and then next time, hopefully it'll, after that, and so people could use that in situations where it's like, okay, there's potentially incoming new data, but I kind of want to not, I mean, we can add that, I guess I would like to try it without that. I think, what's it called? What's the Angular spin-off? The guy,
Aurelia?
huh? Aurelia?
Aurelia?
Yeah, doesn't that kind of force you to write all your properties up front using, because it uses getter setters for its?
Yeah, I think so.
I guess to me, I'm like willing to, at least the initial iterations, I would like to put those kind of things in the back seat and see how people respond to it. But Julian, are you thinking it's going to be a big problem for your app? Like, do you?
No, but I think if you're saying somebody adds a new, if there's an app, you add something new, you had to add in your map. You can't do that. So maybe there is some. Yeah,
What do you mean? You just go here and you just say new prop. What do you mean you can't? Do you mean you? What do you?
Yeah, but if the new prop is dynamic, you add multiple new props that you don't, they can name them themselves, so
Yeah.
you can't do that with the file map. So I like the way if you can add in easily and .attr method that we can define dynamically attributes. That would be very great. So the user can say, okay, if I don't, this is the only possible way I can add dynamically attributes to the map. So I would like that.
What I mean, you've actually experienced this, because like part of me is thinking back through the apps that I've worked on, it's very few and far between that have like non-well structured properties, especially something where like seal wouldn't work. Right? Yeah, there's definitely situations where like the server might one day send me a property that I didn't expect. So I definitely see the need for a seal false, but there's very few apps that I've worked on that have properties that are so unstructured that you don't know all of the ones that you might be working on well ahead of time. I mean, do you actually have experience with that? Because I understand it conceptually. I totally understand the conceptual fear that, oh, that could happen, and I'm sure it does. But I'm just wondering, like, in your experience, what percentage of apps do you think actually?
So I have some, for example, I have someone who want to add a room, and the room should be named like bath or a kitchen or something else. So the named room the user can type in. So I added the named room into the property. So the property is the named room, and I can access them. So this is maybe a bad example, but if the user can type the attribute name themselves, so this would be a real world example, but maybe it's not really. Maybe we can refactoring the map that's also working with that without having that .attr attribute or dynamic way.
So your example app is people enter a room name, but then it becomes a property name of something else?
So you have an object that's a list of rooms instead of like an actual list.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, part of me, like, yes, we could probably make both work. It's just at that point you almost might as well be using can map, because the performance is not going to be spectacular. Or it'll be the approximate same as can map. Probably going to be still a little bit faster because there's less levels to jump through with the new kind of design, but it won't be as fast as the other defined properties. And that's okay, because then I guess it's opt-in. So sure, I can probably look to add that. I probably am not going to call the method atter, though, because I've never liked atter, because we call these things properties. So maybe I don't know. I don't know what you guys think, but part of me is like, we could do two things. We could either call it prop. There's a few things. So if I did a new to-do, and let's say we wanted to have, I'm still going to probably have an after in there so people can switch, but I won't be documented. It'll be like or it'll be deprecated, like don't use this, because these things are properties, and we call them after only to, with the original CanJS, only to parallel jQuery's naming conventions, because jQuery had an after method, and everybody was super familiar with that. But we're no longer in that world, so I don't want to stick with that. I prefer either a get or set, right? So you're adding a foo property. Actually, you would never need a get. Well, you would need a get if this property could be defined in the future, but hasn't been defined. So you would still need a get. So it could be get or set, or it could be prop. We could do we can still keep the prop, or it can do both. Or it could be anything else you guys can dream up. I don't know if you have a...
If you're looking for opinions, I like get and set.
Huh?
Said if you're looking for opinions, I like get and set.
Yeah, I'm looking for opinions.
Yeah,
Like those last two.
I'm with Kevin. I like get and set too.
Okay. I can make some get and sets that would do this. All right, I can add that. That probably isn't too bad. Now, yeah, okay. The default type rule for this would be to now, if you did something like this, sorry, maybe it was attacking me. If you do something like this, this will get converted to a defined map observable, not left as a normal object. There's no way. We could make it, if we wanted to be really crazy, is you could also provide the define rule. We could say, like, here's the value, but then you could also say, well, like, type is star if you don't want it to be converted, or like to-do or something if you want it to be converted to a to-do or something special, and you didn't want to manually do this yourself. Make that happen. Cool. Anything else?
Not can be fine.
All right. Anything else we want to talk about? I gotta go in like 5 minutes.
Yes, something I talked about David.
Hey, just I have one question. So, with map.atter syntax, it used to give us protection against these undefined errors. Let's say you had nested DP nested properties. So let's say one of the intermediate properties was undefined. It used to give us protection against those kind of errors. So with this new defined map, are we preserving the behavior?
To make sure I understand what you're saying, if you tried to set a deeply nested value that wasn't defined, yes. I mean, I've said it's even if you set a shallow property that's undefined, it throws an error. So it's definitely going to throw a problem if you're trying to set something deeply nested, even if it was something defined. So if I said like I had a let's say you had an owner, and that could be whatever inside there, and someone did create to do and did t.owner. Well, that's going to be fine. But if they did anything on that, I'm just trying to think what would happen here. Is owner wouldn't exist, it'd be undefined, so this would throw a warning. But yeah, let's look at those errors.
So this will work because we still have the owner object in the defined map object, right? But let's say if we have something like, let's say, t.owner.foo.bar is equal to bar.
If I had what?
If I have, let's say, t.owner.foo.bar is equal to bar.
Well, yeah, it would error here still because it's using the normal property lookup of JavaScript. It's using the normal dot operator. And if owner would be undefined, it would say you cannot read foo from undefined.
Yeah, right. But then, okay, I got you. Okay.
It's no longer. I'll put it this way: it's no longer using. There's no magic anymore with the behavior like there would have been with Attr, where we're trying to like read nested properties. It's just the normal dot operator. There's getters underneath the hood, but it's still the normal dot operator.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Cool. Julian, were you about to bring something else up?
Yes, something short. Maybe we can quick go through. I talked to David last week and to Matthew. So I have in the last forum thread for the last hangout, I have to announce about what we are doing if we named the repos. So repos for Steel or DoneJS or CanJS. Is there a naming convention we provide? Because today there's something, yeah. Some do DoneJS, some do Done, or in Steel we have repos without Steel at the front. So if there a way we can say, okay, if we make a repo, name it like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The only the only convention that I really care about is that that I like is that whatever your npm name is going to be, your GitHub project name matches. So that's like we're doing this on CanJS. It's like we're not creating CanJS/route as a GitHub. We're creating CanJS/can-route because we're not going to be able to get route as the npm name, and we wouldn't want it even if we could. At least we tell ourselves that. So it's can-route is the project.
Okay, so I like that because yeah. So maybe we should rename some of our repos in Steel. There are Steel conditions, for example. They not match the npm name with the GitHub repo. So maybe we should rename that and have a convention.
I agree. I think that's a very good idea. I've found it confusing too when I sometimes like forget that the CLI is just DoneJS/CLI, and I'll type it in manually and I won't be brought to like a 404 page.
Okay.
I agree.
So I'm finished.
Cool. One other thing I wanted to bring up is I think we should add Kevin as a contributor. I don't know if you guys have any pros or cons, but he's been coming to all of these and having like a he expressed interest in wanting to be a contributor. He's been coming to these. He just dropped off, which is perfect timing anyways to talk about him behind his back. I think we should add him as a contributor. I don't know if there's any objections to that.
No, perfect.
He's been doing a lot lately. Cool. Awesome. All right, I'm going to let him know and get his picture up on the site. Cool. All right, thanks everybody, and I'll see you next week.
Have a good weekend.
Good weekend. Bye.